For all of the everyday things you'll see in Red Dead Redemption 2, Rockstar's Wild West masterpiece can get pretty weird. Ghosts, vampires, mutants, they're all in there, if you know where to look. Thought you knew how wacky the West could get? You ain't seen nothing yet. If you've played the original Red Dead Redemption, you know who we're talking about.
What's your name? You know, it's the darndest thing. I can't remember.
The Strange Man was a mysterious figure who regularly crossed paths with John Marston in the first game. He's still present in Red Dead Redemption 2, but not in the way you might expect. You don't converse with him. In fact, you don't see him out in the open world. Instead, you learn about the Strange Man by coming across his shack in Lemoyne's Bayou West. When you first enter the shack, you'll see a barely started portrait along with some creepy writing on walls and other surfaces. With subsequent visits to the freaky shack, you'll find the painting begins to fill out. When you finally enter the shack and see the finished portrait, things really get interesting. You can walk over to a nearby mirror, look into it, and see the Strange Man himself in the reflection, as though he's standing behind you. Of course, when you turn around, he's gone. You'll never cross paths with the Strange Man again, at least not in Red Dead Redemption 2. But seeing as RDR2 is a prequel to the first game, his story does indeed go on.
Damn you! Yes, many have.
Red Dead Redemption 2's story starts in 1899, and you'll find a lot of the turn-of-the-century Old West everywhere you look. There are still horses, buggies, and steam trains. The people of RDR2 still do their business in outhouses. It all seems so plain that when Rockstar inevitably throws something out of period at you, it has a far bigger impact. Take, for example, the UFOs. North of Emerald Ranch, you'll find a small cabin with a letter inside, an apparent suicide note from a cult leader which speaks of the second hour under the half moon. If you happen to visit that same cabin at 2 a.m. on a half moon evening, you'll see something that definitely doesn't belong in Red Dead Redemption 2's Old West, an unidentified flying object hovering brightly in the sky. Imagine being Arthur in that situation. You have enough to worry about, with the law after you and your gang struggling to get by in whatever camp you happen to be in. And now there's the scary alien stuff too. Unfortunately for Arthur, this is still only the beginning of his journey into the bizarre. Arthur and John can only get around on their horses, or if they're lucky, they can hop in a carriage or on a train. We're betting they can't even imagine what taking an Uber is like, much less traveling through time. Allow us to explain. Northwest of Strawberry, you'll find a small cabin inhabited by a man named Francis Sinclair with a strange birthmark. The early 20th century jargon that Francis uses should alert you instantly that something is amiss. In short, he doesn't talk like he's from around here, or from around now.
These little rock carvings.
Yeah, exactly, little rock carvings.
What do you want to do with them?
Well, it's sort of very complicated, and you'll think I'm jazzed if I tell you.
You're what?
But still, he has a quest for you to take up if you're willing. All you have to do is search the world for some rock carvings that Mr. Sinclair is hunting. Find them, and the job is done. Sounds easy, right? Well, first off, no, it's a pain. But things get even wackier when you return to the cabin. There, you'll find a woman with a baby. She explains that her husband has passed, so it's just her and her child. And then you see the child. It has the same strange birthmark as Mr. Sinclair, the man you were finding the carvings for. And then she tells you his name.
Your husband, Francis, is dead.
No, this is Francis.
Talk about having your mind blown.
I'm a little confused.
Yes, I think you are.
If you happen to find yourself in Scarlet Meadows in the middle of the night, well...
You are about to shit your pants.
Anyway, all you have to do is hover around the Lemoyne welcome sign until the clock strikes 3 a.m. When it does, start trotting over toward the train tracks. Arthur's horse will start acting disturbed, whinnying and bucking, and then you'll see it, a real bona fide ghost train, chugging translucently across the tracks. You don't get anything out of the experience. There isn't an in-game item tied to finding the ghost train, for instance, nor will you unlock an achievement or trophy. But simply seeing the train is enough to strike fear into even the toughest cowpoke. When you enter the town of Rhodes for the very first time, you'll get a little bit of backstory on the feud between the Braithwaite family and the Gray family, and you'll likely come away thinking that the Braithwaite family sounds like a pretty crappy bunch.
Look, these are two big old plantation houses. All I keep hearing is they hate each other so much they can't see past it.
Well, buddy, you don't know the half of it. Make your way south of Rhodes towards Braithwaite Manor, and then head toward the southwest corner. It's there you'll see something you won't be able to unsee.
What?
Find the way home!
In a secluded area of the property, you'll find a boarded-up, chained-up outhouse with a crying girl inside. Zoom in on this girl and, if the light hits the right way, you'll catch a glimpse of why she might have been locked up by the Braithwaites. She's horribly disfigured. According to Penelope Braithwaite, this poor soul is her cousin, though save for admitting there's nothing she can do for her.
That's my poor cousin. There's no helping her. Believe me, I've tried.
She doesn't offer much more info, only that
I told myself she was better off here with family than in a sanatorium, but maybe she isn't.
And even sadder, you can't free her, it's just not possible. But if nothing else, it cements the fact that the Braithwaites definitely have some skeletons in their closets, or their outhouses, which you'll see when you return to the area in the game's epilogue. If you've spent any time talking to the characters in your Red Dead Redemption 2 camp, you've probably gotten the impression that Reverend Swanson isn't the most reliable storyteller. Sure, he eventually cleans up his act and heads to New York City to become a minister, but early on, few of your crew members ever take him seriously. Whether it's just because he seems a bit off his rocker, or because he's rarely sober, the Reverend isn't exactly a beacon of honesty within the gang.
I used to be a man of God. But now look at me. I'm just a wretch.
As some have learned, however, Reverend Swanson wasn't lying about the ghost of Agnes Dowd.
You all right, Reverend? I know what I saw. A girl. A ghost of a girl in white.
Make your way down to the swamps of Lemoyne between 9 p.m. and 3 a.m. If the moment is right, you'll hear the cries of a woman somewhere in the area. Follow them, and you'll happen upon an apparition in a white dress. That, ladies and gentlemen, is Agnes Dowd.
She never loved you. She never did.
Stay back and you'll see how Agnes Dowd lost her life. Get too close, well, you'll end the encounter, which means you'll have to visit the swamps again on another night to learn the truth about her tragic fate. Ready to see something really grisly? Jump on your horse and head west-northwest of Strawberry toward the edge of the map. Among the tall trees on the side of a hill, you're taking a truly twisted sight. It's what remains of a pagan ritual, complete with half of a decomposing corpse on a spike. Once you fight off the urge to vomit, you'll likely have a lot of questions about what you found. Who or what was this person sacrificed to? Is there more to this story? Why, after returning to the same spot later, is there a different corpse at the same freaking spot? At this point in time, we haven't really found any links between the pagan ritual here and any of the many other unexplained occurrences in the game. If nothing else though, the ritual site serves as a reminder of the horrors that human beings are capable of, and that Rockstar isn't above hammering them into our noggins time and time again. Does the devil truly exist, or did man make him up to justify his own diabolical deeds? That's a question you'll be asking yourself when you first reach the not-so-affectionately dubbed Devil's Cave in Red Dead Redemption 2. Head northwest of Mount Shan and dismount once you find the ominous-looking cave. Next, to get your lantern out. It's a little dark inside. Finally, head in and prepare to be creeped out. Wind through the paths of the cave, and you'll eventually come upon areas that have their own lanterns, signaling that you're clearly not alone here. Climb down a ladder and make your way toward a hole in the cave above you, and then wait for the voice.
I'm the devil! I'm the devil! I'm the devil!
After a few moments, a man appears and offers an unsurprising yet still very twisted admission.
Okay, I'm not the devil, but I want to be. I want to be. And that's even worse.
It's safe to say you'll probably want to hightail it out of there after that, or, you know.
You horrible pig! Oh!
For all intents and purposes, the city of Saint Denis is meant to serve as a stand-in for the city of New Orleans, Louisiana. The city has a decidedly Cajun flair, and there are more than a few French speakers present. You can visit Saint Denis and expect to see some of the stereotypical traits of New Orleans. That includes a taste of the otherworldly. Arthur Morgan, vampire hunter? Screw it, why not? It's true, you can come face to face with a real-life vampire in Red Dead Redemption 2 Saint Denis. Well, real, or just ugly enough to pass for Nosferatu. Either way, coming across this batty bloke means doing some legwork first. There are a few steps you'll need to knock out to trigger his appearance, which include finding some mysterious wall writings and waiting for the right time. Should you meet the conditions, you'll head into a small alleyway in Saint Denis, and there he'll be, finishing up a snack.
Stay back for your own sake. I walk with the undead.
You'll have a short conversation with the vampire before he pulls a knife and tries to come in for his next kill, so be ready. Gun him down, and you've officially hunted your first and, let's be honest, probably last vampire in Red Dead 2. At this point, you've probably seen enough to determine that nothing in the world of Red Dead Redemption 2 is quite as it seems. What masquerades as a simulation of the dying Old West actually has more to it than meets the eye. with its ghosts, UFOs, and vampires. And now you can add a touch of an unsanctioned scientific experiment to the mix. Yay! Good for you! There's a cabin to the west of Van Horn that is keeping quite the secret, should you be daring enough to explore it. Find the cabin and enter to discover a sort of laboratory setup, which alone might be interesting enough, but it's awfully hard to ignore the horned flying pig in the room. That's really it, actually. Someone saw fit to meld a pig as some kind of horned creature and a bird into a mutant hybrid. Your reward for finding it? Nightmares. You're welcome. Red Dead Redemption 2 doesn't have any Undead Nightmare spin-off like the first game did, at least not yet, but you can get pretty darn close to it by visiting Bayou Noir's Lakay Swamp late at night. It's here you'll find the freaks that Red Dead 2 characters call the Night Folk, some seriously messed up swamp residents that will have you hearing deliverance banjos in no time. Randomly encountering the Night Folk isn't an experience all to itself, fortunately. You won't be scaring yourself to death for nothing here. By coming across the Night Folk for the first time, you'll actually unlock a brand new quest called A Fine Night for it, in which you'll learn more about the Night Folk from an old man or helping clear the baddies out of the area.
You see what I mean? This night folk work.
You'll get some pretty good loot for your troubles, including a machete, a perfect muskrat pelt, and a gold tooth. You can at least sell 2 of those for some coin, and the machete? Well, who knows what other creeps you'll come across as more is discovered in Red Dead Redemption 2. You'd better hold on to that.